Yep. Okay. Okay. Yep. All right, little speaking, so you can hear me all right on the microphone. I think it's this microphone is switched off, so it should be just this microphone. You can hear me all right. Okay, perfect. But wouldn't they just join them then automatically? I think if I. Oh, okay, and then they can join. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Right. We can see some that's all so one thing for like. Yeah, I think that's fine. And then we can just close the other ones. That's perfect.
Sound is fine.
Perfect. Ready to go? Do we wait a little longer? Do you want to wait a little longer? It's 10:30 or?
It's on, yeah.
Oh, we can start? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Minasan, konnichiwa. Wasanok desu. Hai, dozo yoroshiku. Orenda de Hanashanai Nihongo Hasanai to Takusan Tango Shirimasen. Takara presentation wa ego. Sumimasen. So I'm going to switch to English now, which is much more comfortable for me. I'll try to speak slowly. We're going to do a workshop, so we can interact. If you have a question, raise your hand. Tell me what the question is, and we'll talk about it. We have a lot of material to cover, but the idea is that you're going to actually do the work. You're going to do the exercises and get the learnings from doing it, rather than listening to me. I'm Bas van der Hoek. I work for a company called Silverline. Let me share my presentation. This is me, Silverline. We're a product development company. And sometimes we tell other companies how you can do product development. We have a bookkeeping product, a hardware product, and we do trainings in Scrum. I've done hundreds of product owner and Scrum Master trainings. And I've also done value requirements trainings, another aspect of thinking about value. And this is really based on it. So it's the application of some of these ideas to Scrum. So we're going to talk about OKRs. What are OKRs? OKRs are just a common way, a method to set common goals. And also to track progress on those goals. So an example of an objective would be maybe if we're building an app for people to go out more and go on walks. The objective could be at the end of the quarter, our walking route app is loved by people living in major cities. So the focus for this quarter would be not people that live on the countryside that go on walks, but we want to get people that are living in cities actually to walk around more. This is the objective, but how do you define success? How do you know whether you accomplish this or not? This is where key results come in. They define what success means. So it's a measurable result that defines actually achieving that objective. An example would be the percentage of customers who live in major cities is increased from 10% to 20%. So this is externally observable. This is a very important aspect. Or the percentage of city routes chosen increases from 5% to 10%. And notice that these key results are defined as outcomes for our product. Now, when you want to establish OKRs, a common cadence of doing so is on a quarterly basis. And most organizations already work with a quarterly cadence, right? We have quarterly objectives that we want to accomplish. So it fits really well with this pattern. And then you don't just establish them at the beginning of the quarter and then continue to the end of the quarter and wonder what happened to the OKRs. But you check on those regularly, preferably every week or every 2 weeks. And you maybe already can see what the match with Scrum might be, right? If you're going to check the progress on key results every 2 weeks, you might as well do this in a sprint review. So it fits very nicely with the Scrum framework. So here's our progress based on those key results. We have some progress indicators. At the beginning of the quarter, we're 10%. And while the quarter progresses, well, we check whether it's actually progressing in the right way. And then maybe for the other objective, we're also a little further ahead. And then at the end of the quarter, yay, we accomplished the percentage of customers in major cities, but maybe not so much for the other goal. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You just need to be clear about your expectations and what these goals mean. OKRs can really help to shift the focus from output to outcomes. And many Scrum teams are very much output focused, probably because they don't interact with actual end users that much. And there's a tendency to focus on other things that we do have control over. So very often Scrum teams are very proud about the number of story points they accomplished. But that is a meaningless number. Story points are not value, story points are cost. So the idea is that we can help really shift away from the focus on output. Here are a few examples of things that we could do to really get more people from cities to use our walking app, right? We can buy a Google Ads campaign for city dwellers. We can buy more city routes from a certain provider. Or we can create more extensive filtering in the app so you can select what sort of route you want to walk. Now, what would be the drawback of accomplishing these goals? What is wrong with them? Exactly. These are all output-based, right? These are things that you do, but not really things that you influence. So maybe this Google Ad campaign helps, but it's also quite possible that it has no effect at all. So we want to try to make sure that we define these key results in a way that's really about something that we influence, not something that we do. And this is like one of the most common pitfalls in OKRs, to just define activities, initiatives, rather than actually outcomes, like we have here, right? These are things that are external to our app. A little history. OKRs are quite an old technology. It's been around forever. Andy Grove started doing it at Intel in the 70s when I was born. But he got it from, I think, from Peter Drucker, from Management by Objectives, which was a bit more cascading top-down. OKRs have a tendency, or are meant really, to be more collaborative. At Intel, John Doerr worked for a while, but then he left after a while. And he helped Google implement OKRs. And that's what most people remember or think that originated OKRs. They think Google started doing it because Google was growing really fast. And they were looking for a way to sort of focus their initiatives. And John Doerr showed up and said, I've come with a gift, the gift of OKRs. And it helped them become really successful. And I mean, Google is one of the prime examples of how to properly apply OKRs. Of course, there are some books that you can read. John Doerr actually wrote a book about OKRs called Measure What Matters. A lot of people were expecting this, were looking forward to it. in my opinion, it's not the best book around. There are a few others that I can recommend more. One of them is a book by Christina Botka, Radical Focus, which is more like a business novel. So you read it like a story rather than a reference. And a book that I particularly like is The Beginner's Guide to OKRs by Felipe Castro. And the thing with OKRs is there is not a canonical definition of OKRs. This is not like Scrum, where we have a Scrum guide that defines Scrum for everybody. With OKRs, it's really like implementation dependent. And this is a free guide, so you can just download it. It's only a few pages, but in essence, OKRs aren't that difficult, just like Scrum. It's quite simple to understand, but it's very difficult to do it right. Skip this one, but I want to give you an example of OKRs, a more recent one. So maybe you've heard of Elsevier. They're a worldwide publisher of medical articles, or medical journals, basically. And there's these examples came from a video that you can see online. Many companies don't publish their OKRs because, well, they're part of the secret sauce, if you will, to make them really successful. But Elsevier did, basically with the help of Felipe Castro. And these were their original objective and key results. So the objective for a particular quarter was to improve the user experience on journal pages. And the key results were to add access info to a journal access archive page and to test new mobile designs with users. Now you probably recognize that these are not really good OKRs. Again, these are initiatives. So what Felipe Castro did, he helped Elsevier really improve on these. So their new OKRs, these are gone, became like this. Protect the crown jewels. This is really local language. So what would it mean? Well, for Elsevier, it means that this is their most valuable asset, right? These articles. So they want to make sure that people that access those really valuable assets have paid for them. That's basically the whole idea behind it. Of course, they had key results around that. So they want to reduce the illicit access from X to Y. And this is very often how you would see key results defined. From this number to another number, or above this number, or below this number. There's usually a number involved. But also reduced the support tickets related to stopping illicit access from X to Y. And this is often called a balancing key result, or this one, reduce the number of capture pop-ups. Because of course, if we want to make sure that nobody illegally can access our articles, well, we just make sure that everybody gets a really annoying capture pop-up where they need to identify which things are the stairs and where the buses are, those sort of things. So that really helps, but it's really poor user experience. So sometimes you see that these key results are not just focused on one particular outcome, but also make sure that we don't get something that we don't want as a side effect of these key results. Okay, so enough talk. This is the basic idea behind it. I want to give you a little exercise. Just to summarize, right? So an objective is like ambitious and aspiring, but it's not measurable, right? Something to remember. Key results, on the other hand, really define the measurable result that defines the success of our objective. And these really talk about the influence that we have rather than the things that we do, which is a very important distinction, because we also have an initiative. Initiative is not really part of like the whole OKR framework, if you will, but they're just things that we do, right? So I'm gonna start, let's see. First, I'm gonna give you the exercises. You have 7 minutes to classify these different cards as objectives, key results, or initiatives. These are both in English and in Japanese, but I have to warn you, it's Google Translate Japanese. So I had them checked by a Japanese person. Yeah. Here you go. I guess this is one. Yeah. So if the Japanese doesn't make any sense, you can flip it around and then there's the English version. And if the English doesn't make sense, you can flip it around. And so hopefully that will work. For the online people, you can join. Oh. Oh. If you're online, you can join this spreadsheet. And maybe select a room that you want to work in. And then, how many people are there? Okay, so you can just join a room, one of the breakout rooms, and put an X where you think the X should go, whether it's an objective, key result, or an initiative. Okay. Oh. Yeah. No, you can make this room. Yeah. Sure.
What is the difference for you between objective and key results?
So an objective is really like the goal that we want to accomplish, but it doesn't really define how you accomplish it when you have achieved success.
Like a global.
Yeah, it's global. It should be inspiring. It should be aspirational, but you can't really say we've done it. And the key result that you can measure. Yeah, yeah. So an objective, an initiative is something that you do, but it's not something that you influence. But a key result is something that you influence, but not something that you do. Yeah, output. Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's so. This is outcome. This is output.
Thanks.
So, there should be 7 in each column. No, that's fine. You can leave it like that. So there's missing. One is missing here. Should be 7. Yeah. Should be 7 in each column. Really? Yeah. No, it's it. Right. Yeah. 7. Yeah. Yeah. Ah, perfect. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Done? Are there 7? Yeah. This is an initiative. Key results. Objective. Oh, and this is not. Oh, this is this is the one. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. So these two. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Too many. There should be 7 in each column.
Yes, we're trying to figure out what product we're making.
Oh, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it just allows just general samples. Yeah. So just words. Yeah. Okay, I'll help you. Shine a little light. Oh, this is initiative. And this one too. Oh, the other ones, yeah, perfect, very good. But these two are initiatives, yeah. One more time, okay. Key result. Yeah. One key result. Is it correct now?
Check.
Yeah.
Great.
Perfect. Good job. Yeah. Nice. Oh, time's up. Very good. One.
We were not sure about this. Okay, but let's see which one is this. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's review that. Place.
Okay. So the time box has expired. We need to continue. For our online participants. Oh, very good. These are in the wrong place. Yeah. So let's continue. And I'll talk a little bit about common pitfalls. Because I have to be honest, the way that these were phrased were a bit meant to give you the wrong idea. Because some of these things sound like key results, right? For example, the 20 most recently bugs are fixed. I don't know how to say it. Well, what does it say? It's Saikin. Hi, Sodas. Hi, arigato. So why is this not a key result? And this is very common, right? Because this is something that we can count. But just because we can count it doesn't make it a key result. Because we could fix the 20 most recently reported bugs, but it would still not mean a better experience for our end users, right? It's something that we do, not something that we influence. And this is a common pitfall. And this is meant to sort of make you think about, okay, so what are good key results? Good key results are outside in, from outside the team or outside of the product looking into the product. Things that you do are not key results, those are initiatives. But good job, did you, let me shine my little light on your set as well so you can see what's going on. Oh, these are all initiatives.
Oh,
Yeah.
these are
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. So we can have objective and key results on different levels in the organization. The top level objective for the whole organization might be that we become more popular with a younger target group. There will be the objective, but how do we actually define success for that objective? For example, we increase our market share among people in the 20s from 10% to 50%. Right? Market share is something that we influence, not something that we do. But this is an overall objective. So for teams, it might be something else. A marketing team might say, okay, our online campaigns are a hit with a younger target group. But how do you define a hit? Well, a hit would mean that our TikTok videos get 10,000 likes. So it's an external interaction with our product, right? The users, they like the video, so that's an outcome, not an output. Or for the product development team, young people love our product, increase the net promoter score amongst 20-somethings from 40 to 50. And net promoter score is actually a kind of a lagging key result because it takes a while to influence it. Very often you want to focus on something that is a bit more leading. So you have faster feedback. NPS is really often a very slow feedback cycle. Now, OKRs can really help establish this alignment that you need around along the top level objectives and the objectives that are further down the organization. So an organization has a mission and a vision. What is the direction that we want to go into? Typically, these things exist. And then you can have an annual objective that sort of directs the whole company. Okay, this year we really want to focus on this particular market or this particular product. And then for next year we have another objective. And this is very key that we don't have too many objectives and key results. The idea is that we focus. And if we have like 20 objectives and key results, there is no focus. If we have one, we have a lot of focus, right? And then in a quarter, we can have a quarterly objective and maybe a few more quarterly objectives. And per objective, we can have a key result and maybe a few more key results. But that's about it. Between 1 and 3 objectives, and per objective, maybe between 2 and 5 key results, with a preference for less. And then, of course, we have the initiatives that are our ideas on how to actually accomplish those key results. For Scrum teams, these initiatives are often product backlog items, things that we have teams do, right? So fix the 20 most important bugs is something that you do, but how would it influence our key results? Probably not as much. But if you rephrase it, fix the bugs that get the most calls to customer service, then it would be more of a key result, right? So every like major bug that is often reported more than 3 times to customer service, gets fixed in a week. That's something that you can actually accomplish. So this can really help to get alignment both from the top down and from the bottom up. And that's really the idea. So we don't have these cascading objectives, but we try to have objectives per team, and then we see whether the alignment is there. Because if the teams come up with different objectives and key results than the organization wants to achieve, then we know that we have an alignment problem. And that's something that we can fix over time. But just cascading objectives from the top down doesn't really help with that alignment. So everybody should be involved in establishing these OKRs, and often they are established in workshops, like the setting that we have here. We just have the people together at the beginning of the quarter, maybe a little before the start of the quarter, and we start going through iterations of establishing those objectives and key results. So over time, we see that the alignment improves over in the organization, and that can really take a few quarters. This really requires a certain amount of patience for the organization to really grasp the idea of objective and key results. Here's an example. You probably heard of Booking.com. It's a Dutch company, and they're really good in booking hotels. And then after a while, Airbnb showed up, and they were really good at booking non-hotels, so you could live in somebody else's house. So for Booking.com, there was a strategic decision. Do we want to compete with Airbnb, or do we just want to focus on our hotels? Well, we all know what they did. They decided to compete. They left a lot of freedom to the individual teams to define how they would achieve those key results around having more bookings on people's apartments and houses rather than hotels. And there's an example from the Dutch market. As you might know, in Holland, many people have bicycles, and particularly in Amsterdam, there are a lot of bicycles. So the one team in Booking.com came up with this idea. We're just going to put a saddle cover, so when it's raining, your saddle is still dry, over all these bicycles, and tell particularly students, because they did it in student areas, that they could actually rent out their apartment while they were on vacation to get more traction in that market. Now, this turned out to be a really bad idea because legally, most of those students don't own the apartment, so they're not even allowed to sublet. But it gives you an idea of the amount of freedom Booking.com gives these teams to accomplish these goals, right? So that they don't define it for them. They also don't punish them because this turned out to be the wrong experiment. Their approach is very much experiment-driven. I can really recommend The Machine. It's a very good book about how Booking.com operates. But also, product teams extended the search ability in the Booking.com homepage. This moves around a lot because they do so many experiments. So this is from a while back. So when you're looking for a place to stay, you can say, I'm looking for an entire home or apartment. So you can pick whether you want to be in a hotel or somewhere else. All right. So enough about alignment. I want to shift gears and talk about a case that we'll use for the next exercise. We're going to talk about polyglotty. And here's the elevator pitch for polyglotty. Maybe if you've done a product owner training, then very often you've seen an elevator pitch before. But the idea is that in one succinct sentence, we sort of explain the whole proposition that we have. And in this case, it's for people who want to learn another language. Polyglotty is an online platform that connects them with people who speak the language as their first language. So other than just reading books or watching videos, polyglotty offers interesting conversations that motivate you to get better at the language. Right? Great idea. So you talk to a native speaker and you can really improve your vocabulary and your conversation skills. Okay, great. So polyglotty is live. We launched a minimal viable product and things are great. But now all of a sudden we have competitors. This often happens. If you have a good idea, somebody else thinks, okay, I like that good idea. I'm also going to try it. And we find out that our competitors don't just offer like individual lessons, but they also offer group lessons. And those are cheaper than the individual lessons. We also want to have group lessons, right? At a lower price point. So we attract more customers and we don't lose as many customers to our competitors. So this is the setting. Now imagine that you're part of polyglotty and we're about to start a new quarter and your objective is, to define a few key results to accomplish this objective. So we have these group lessons, but now we want to really expand our presence in the English-speaking market. That's your goal. So I'm going to give you a piece of paper and you're going to get 10 minutes to define like 2 or 3 key results that would define success for becoming a major player in the field of English group lessons. Is this sounding clear? So you're going to get a sheet of paper and some time to work together and trying to define a few key results. And then we're going to see how that went. Here you go. And some markers. Here you go. Sorry, a marker. Yeah. Here you go. For our online attendees,
We have numbers already. What's your market share?
no, you can just, I mean, you can just make up all the numbers that you want. So, yeah.
Just a question. For instance, I still have a difficulty to understand the difference between objective and key results. If we say we want to have 60% of a user base being English native speaker, is it? It seems to me like as well a key result.
That would be a key result. Yeah, yeah.
It seems to me an objective to achieve 60% of the user base.
It could be, but then the idea is that the objective is just like it's usually like something more aspirational than just a number.
Okay.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's why we already have the objective. The objective is to become a major player, and then we need to define what does it mean to be a major player. And it could be that we achieve 60% market share. That would be a key result. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then that's one. Now two more.
Day3の開発やったり、そこに。
Two more.
idea is great. Not sure if we're rating it correctly, but set of all users should be recurring repeat.
So one thing is you want to make sure that the key result is specific to the English group classes, right? So if it's we will have
English.
fine. It is implied.
Everyone similar like us. What do you mean by market share? Give us a good score.
I think if everyone has a few, then it's fine. There are a few in the chat, in the online session. Okay.
Should we put more pens on the side or should we?
We'll just pick a few and then see if, and then maybe I need a little help with the translation.
Right.
To have like key results so that the number of person minimum, like maybe 3.
The number doesn't be
Maybe
There is no flashlight for this exercise. Okay, I think we have enough for now. Let's see if I can put it over here so online attendees can also see. Oh, I'm still working on it. Is this the one or is it?
We pick all.
Oh, okay. Yep. Fine. Okay. I'm just going to share a few observations with you. So the objective is to become a major player in the field of English group classes. English native speakers in our user base wouldn't make a lot of sense because these people already speak English. So what would be a more teachers? Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. So we want to attract more teachers. That would be like a goal. And 60%, very commonly, you want to actually say we want to grow from this to that. Right? We have so many now. We want to have so many later on. It's not bad per se, but I think it could be improved that way. Then focus on communication, Google Ads and ads. But would an ad be an initiative? Yeah, advertising. But is it an initiative or a key result? It's an. But if focus on communication, is it something that you do or something that you influence? Yeah, maybe so. Organic results. That might be something like how often are people find you based on organic Google search results. Very common, right? If you do any sort of online marketing business, then these are quite obvious sometimes. I can read this one, NPS from X to Y, and that's a very good key result. The problem with Net Promoter Score is that it often takes a while for you to get that feedback. So another way would be well, let's see. Maybe can you translate one of these for me, please? Maybe I move it a little closer. Yeah, thanks. And increase the number of users in. Oh, okay, yeah. And then the number of users that take English classes, right? So we want to be specific about, because otherwise we just increase the number of users. Also. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, that's really good. The number of users that take English classes. Maybe another one.
The sentence post like X, Twitter.
Yeah.
With the post with our company's tags is X.
Yeah. So more people talk about you. There are more mentions of you on X or SNS that you offer English classes. Yeah, very good. Yeah. exceed the number of members of our competitors. So we want to beat the competition. Yes. But is it something that you could accomplish in a quarter? If the competition is really small, maybe. But this could be like a goal for a year. We want to. There's a new competitor. We want to beat them. So making it smaller would be we take a bigger part of the pie. And even like the bigger part of the pie, market share is usually pretty lagging because you depend on like researchers to find out what the market share is. Right? So you have to wait for the next report, and these reports sometimes appear once a year, sometimes once a quarter. So also in those situations, you want to look at, okay, what?
Only a night class or like the morning class, we exceed the number of competitors.
Then still the question is, how would you actually know that you are successful, right? And it's a pitfall to start thinking about the measurement too quickly, but you shouldn't be blind to it. So a number of lessons groups exceeds individual lessons. Yeah, but this could also be a bad thing. So what if all of a sudden nobody takes individual classes anymore and they just take group classes, right? So then we have accomplished our key result, but I wouldn't call it success. So sometimes this is actually something that you want to put in here as a balancing key result. So the number of group classes doesn't affect our individual classes by more than 10%. Because we don't want to shift everyone from individual classes, which are really profitable, to group classes, which are a lot less profitable, right? So you need to be a bit careful that you have the right key result. And I gave you a very small time box to practice with it, but you can tell that it's not really easy. So you usually iterate, just like you iterate the product vision. You repeat it a few times and people ask you questions, say, but what if like all individual users go to group classes? That's not something we want. And you go, oh, that's right. Maybe we need something to balance that. Okay, maybe one more. Oh, here. We have at least 500 new English group class users per week. Yeah, fine. And 70% of all English group class users are recurring users. Yeah, that's also great. And market share increases by 10% per quarter. But then you, of course, you have to think about how we establish that 10%. Yeah. It's pretty impressive, right? Good job. All right, you can sit down again. We're going to move on to the next exercise. So you practice with writing key results a little bit. And you also saw how easy it is to step into one of those pitfalls. Have an initiative, it's not related too much to the objective. So it takes a little practice to get better at it. And this was maybe your first practice, hopefully a step along the way to get better at it. All right, so here are my key results. Of course, I asked you to give me some key results. These are the key results that I thought of when I wanted to do something about this objective. So we want to have 10% of our experienced English teachers that right now give individual lessons also offer a group lesson. A key result. This is outcome-based. Another one is the average fill rate of group classes is 80%. So enough people actually participate in these group classes who want to be a major player. 10% of new students take a group lesson. So we move people from this one category of users to another category of users. And 60% of group lesson students book a second lesson from the same teacher, which was similar to the one that we just saw, right? Repeat business. So you want to also track engagement. Just a few examples. All right. Now, very often you hear the words KPIs and OKRs used interchangeably, but they're not really the same thing. So what you typically see is that a KPI is much more operational. It's the same thing and it stays the same the whole year. And maybe it stays the same every year. It's not something that you want to change. OKRs are much more dynamic because they change every quarter. We want to focus on something that is most important in this quarter, but we want to make sure that the car keeps running, right? We want to make sure that we have a certain speed. All these things need to be at this certain number. And sometimes we want to make a change. And that's what we use OKRs for. And an example would be, for example, of a KPI that we established at Polyglotti is the number of new students per month. It needs to be like a certain number because that shows our growth, or the percentage of users dropping out. How much attrition do we have? Or the average rating of classes. Those are things that we keep tracking, right? For teachers, it would be, well, the number of teachers, new teachers per month, how are we growing in terms of the teachers that are offering classes, yeah, how many drop out, what is the average price of classes that they offer? Something that we want to track to make sure that our operation is healthy. And finally, for our company, well, then we have these very common KPIs. We want to make money and we want to save costs, and these are usually not very inspirational. You don't get out of bed every day and go like, I want to make more money. That's not really what motivates people. But the other things can be a lot more motivating. So if you relate KPIs to OKRs, this is typically how it works. We have this KPI, the percentage of students by month that drop out, and we're tracking it. And we've said, well, 30% or 30 as a number, that's the maximum. And when it goes over that number, we start to worry because something is wrong. And when we notice that KPI changing, we can decide to have an objective and key result to really fix, to address this issue, right? So the KPI stays the same the whole year. We don't want too many users to drop out, but if we see something goes wrong, we can say, okay, new students need to book a subsequent class immediately after their first lessons. That's what we want to accomplish. We want to be so attractive that they immediately give you more. And the key results would be, well, the average percentage of students taking a second lesson after the first lesson from the same instructor goes from 30% to 50%. That's a goal that you could, like a key result that you could give to a team to try to influence. Or the average student rating of a first lesson increases from 4 to 5, 4 per 5 star. That could be another way to influence the attrition that we're currently experiencing. So we're thinking that if people like the classes better, well, they will stay around longer. Now, we've been talking about sprints and Scrum a little bit at the beginning. Let's talk a little bit more about how this relates to Scrum. So, first of all, what really determines the extent to which your OKRs provide focus in the sprint review and sprint planning, right? I said it's a really nice wrapper for the Scrum framework, but only if you release very often. So if you have sprints for 2 weeks, but you release every 2 months or every 3 months, then the feedback cycle is going to be much slower. So the way that this is applicable in a Scrum setting is also going to be diminished. It's going to be less. And also, how quickly will the measurements change? So, like I said, NPS is pretty lagging. Market share is usually also pretty lagging. If I do something today, how long will it take for me to actually see an effect of that outcome? How long for me to see the impact of it? All right, so I want to give you another exercise, a way to estimate value, right? So in Scrum, it's very common to estimate cost, and very many teams do that with planning poke or some other means, t-shirt sizes. But we also need to be a bit more specific about what value actually is. And one way to do that is to just sort a backlog by value at your table, like this, right? We have all these backlog items, and once you sort them by value, then you can start adding numbers to it. Often this works best, so you don't discuss numbers too quickly. At the moment you start discussing numbers, you get disagreement, But just ordering them in least valuable to most valuable will probably help. So you can say, well, you can sort of create a scale after you've done that, right? So most valuable is on the right-hand side, least valuable is on the left-hand side, and you just spread it out the way you think it sort of matches. This is also an iterative process. And then after you've done the first 10 and you put the numbers there, then you can add the remaining backlog items. And I just want to have you practice with this to see if this would be practical in your situation. So here is, let's see, I think, oh yeah. Here are product backlog items. Again, the translation is by Google Translate. The letter is just an identifier. So it's easy for me to see which backlog item you selected. And the number, well, you can probably guess what the number is. The number is the cost. So we already have estimations from the product, from the developers, how much effort it's going to take to make this. So first, take the first 10, put them in order of value, add these cards to them. Planning poker cards. So you can you create a scale. And once you've done that, add the remaining, I think, 10 items or so.
So one is like a match size, or it's like ascending order or descending order?
So one is the least value, and like 30 or 40 or 100 is the most value.
Most value, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so just pick 10 random ones and then just put them in order of value. Just have a discussion about it. You don't have to be right. It just needs to be an order because it's an estimation. Okay. There is a new sheet open in the spreadsheet that you can use. Try this as well. So and those are the two key results that you need to focus on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Wait. Okay.
As a teacher, I try to make some website so they can provide sufficient.
It's like regular prioritization.
It's not prioritization yet. It's just assigning value. So in a way, it is prioritization, but this is just like estimating the value of these backlog items given these key results. It's a cost, yeah. So maybe you can also assign the cards to them, so you have an idea of what the value is, or is this the order?
Yes, but we have this part. This is the order.
Okay, so that's not the okay. So then maybe. Well, that's what you do as a protocol, yeah. But yeah.
It's okay.
Maybe you can add the cards next to it so we can see the value estimate. So put the cards next to it so we know, are these the ones in value, 2s, 3, etc. Put it next to it, yeah. What is the value?
We do that.
We have 1 minute left, right? Okay. So this is the most value, and then that's the least value, right?
That's clear.
Yeah. Okay. So I can see we're out of time, so we're just going to see what we came up with. The numbers really help me to compare like different tables. So H, G, and L are near the top for you. They're also here near the top, H, G, and L. Here, maybe you're still working on it. Yeah. What you maybe find is that it's quite difficult, first of all, to come up with what does value mean, and then also, if I give you 2 key results, what does it actually mean? Because very often, when you take a user story, for example, if we take your top user story, as a student, I can buy 10 lessons for the price of 9, so that I pay less overall and I'm more motivated to continue. Actually, that would affect both of them. Yes. Let's try another one. This is also a subscription, so that makes sense. Yes. As a student, I see which classes are almost full to know whether I should decide how quickly to register. So that really doesn't affect like the second key result, does it?
Well, if it's always full, you might not be.
It might, yeah. But typically we have like more than 2 key results, right? We focus on a few objectives. It's very difficult to have that amount of focus. It takes a little while to get much better at that. And this is, I think, one of my criticisms for user stories as well. A user story tries to mention the person that most benefits from this particular feature, but it sort of doesn't mention what the side effects might be, right? There's only like focus on one particular stakeholder that benefits. And usually it's more complicated than that, right? So let's talk about it a little bit. This is like an exercise, a way you can assign value to backlog items from a business perspective, right? You already have the cost, and typically you do this first. Because it's easier to design the value or to try agree on the value than it is to talk to the development team and ask, what is going to be the effort? As a product owner, you first want to prioritize, then talk to the developers, and then reprioritize based on the feedback that you got. Now, let's talk a little bit more about value. Oh yeah, first of all, let's talk about measurements, because that's another thing, of course. The moment we start talking about these key results, it's very tempting to also say, well, this is really difficult to measure, right? And then we tend to focus on things that are easy to measure, but those things don't tell us anything, right? So this is a pitfall. So it's much better to try to work the vocabulary of value into your conversation, because talking about value in a certain way doesn't cost anything. But measuring is an action that has a certain cost associated with it. But the cost really depends on the level of measurement that you're doing. So, for example, if you take this, the average minutes from opening the website to choosing a recipe, that might be something that you want to measure. So a perfect measurement would actually to build it into the website, so it starts tracking the moment the user gets in, then it creates a dashboard that shows everything that's going on, right? This is really accurate, really dependable, but also expensive to build. Much cheaper is to ask 10 people to try it, use your stopwatch, and average the result. If you have no measurement at all, any measurement is an infinite improvement of what you just had, right? So if you're already really good, then it's going to cost a lot more effort to get better measurements. A famous quote from Voltaire: "Perfect is the enemy of good." So we rather do something that's sufficient for now, and then improve on it if we find out that it's useful, rather than first make it perfect and then find out it's not useful. No, this is not what I want to show. Oh yeah, actually this is what I showed, but this is a different velocity, sorry. So, for example, if you want to measure the velocity of a vehicle, one way to do it is just look out the window and look at how fast the trees are passing and sort of estimate, well, it's somewhere between, I don't know, 50 and 100, but that could be off by a big margin. And maybe that's good enough, right? If you're on the ski slope and you're going down, you know that you're going too fast. That's good enough. You don't know how fast are you actually going, but some observation is sometimes good enough. Another way is just like look at the dashboard and you can see, well, 60 kilometers per hour. Okay, we're fine. Typically, the speedometers on dashboards are not that accurate. So you can improve on it and just switch on the GPS system. So it actually tells you how fast you're going. And that's often how you learn that the speedometer in your car isn't very accurate. Usually it's off by 5 kilometers, or sometimes more. In my car, it's almost 10 kilometers, like with a little margin. Then, of course, you can improve that. You can use a laser gun. That's very, very accurate, but not always necessary, right? Or you have track control, where from the moment you enter a piece of the highway, they take a photograph of your license plate, and then a few kilometers later, they take another photograph of your license plate, and they just take that time and divide it between the distance that you drove, and then they go like, oh, well, this is how fast you drove. So we can actually also establish like average speed over a longer course. This is another way. I think this is less accurate, right? So you have a stopwatch, you watch until like, you have a little sign that every 100 meters on the highway. That's something that's very common in Holland, and you can measure that. So that's just to say that measurement is something that you should consider later. First, you should consider, okay, what is the important things that we should focus on? And then you can worry about how we're going to measure it later. And there are many, many ways to make it much, much easier. Okay. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about value from a different perspective. This is Tom Gilp and Kai Gilp. I did many trainings with Kai Gilp on value requirements. Tom Gilp is sometimes called the grandfather of Agile. Like way in the 80s, he was already like delivering value every week and focusing on stakeholder values, things that we now take as a given for Scrum teams. And some Scrum teams don't even do that. He wrote this book, Competitive Engineering, which I can really recommend, but it's really, really tough to read. In the book, he defines language or planning language, and then he writes the rest of the book in planning language. So it's very dense, And it's not exactly a page turner. It's not like a book that you open up, take a cup of tea, and just start reading. It really takes some effort. His son also tried to write a book, but he never finished it. This is the manuscript. It's called Evo. It's much more accessible. I worked a lot with Kai Gilp, and we did value requirements trainings. And I want to share some of the ideas about value with you and some of the tools that you can use to maybe use these key results and some of his ideas to come to better prioritization. So I heard Michael yesterday say, okay, how do we define value? Well, there is no canonical definition of value. You can look it up in a dictionary, you can Google it, there are different definitions. But the way that Tom and Kai Gilp look at it is that value is defined between, it's in the interaction between a stakeholder and a product, or a product and a sub-product. So it's really about the interaction. Now, when you start comparing these items, sometimes it's very difficult. And sometimes people say, well, it's very difficult to make these comparisons because it's like, it's comparing apples versus oranges. That's an American expression. I looked up the Japanese expression and it wasn't about fruit. It was different. But it's comparing two different things. And you think, yeah, that's true. Like apples and oranges are difficult to compare. In Holland, we say apples and pears. So it's a little cultural change. But then also we have oranges, right? And we pretend like it's very difficult to make those comparisons. But that's not true, is it? Every time you walk into a supermarket, you're comparing apples to oranges and pears. And you wonder, what am I going to buy? Actually, it's quite easy to make those comparisons. But there are different considerations that you make when you make that call, right? Sometimes you like one particular food better over another. So pears are better tasting, maybe in my opinion. On the other hand, the nutritional value of an orange is quite high because it has a lot of vitamin C. The shelf life is not so good, right? You buy a pear and then for a short window, it's really nice. And then afterwards, it's not very good at all anymore. So then, of course, you have the value. You can basically add these numbers up because they're percentages. And you can say, how much value does this give, given these different aspects of this product, right? This is what you do in your mind the whole time when you're buying things. When you walk to the supermarket, this goes through your mind. I have a bag with me. I'm not going to buy pears because when I buy pears, it's going to be mush by the time I'm going to be home. Then, of course, you can also consider the cost. How much do these different items cost? And with all this information, you can make a much more rational decision about what the best choice would be. Because when you know what the value is and what the cost, and you have percentages, you can just basically divide value by cost. And then you can do a ranking based on that estimate. Right? So given the different preferences that I have, well, maybe I don't like apples as much, but the shelf life is really high, and I really appreciate that. And the cost is very low, so they're my first choice. And this is a really powerful product owner tool. When you want to go through backlog prioritization and be a bit more rational about it, this is one way of doing it. We're not really used to doing this, but key results really help because then we already have the definitions of success that we need to do the prioritization. So often prioritization is just like somebody's opinion. That's what often happens. Or whoever screams the loudest this time determines what gets at the top of the backlog. I think there are better ways to do that. And one of the ways is using something called a value decision table or an impact estimation table. Basically, we have the backlog items and the different key results that we want to attain. And we know what the costs are. And then we can say, okay, what is the impact of this user story on the percentage of experienced English teachers offering group classes? And we can say, well, it has a bit of influence on it. 2 circles and they're green, that means it's good. A little bit on the average fill rate, but it negatively affects the percentage of students who book a second lesson with the same teacher after 1 lesson, right? So here we see the effect of user stories because they only mention the benefit to one particular user. And of course, these are also estimates, right? You don't have to agree with me. I'm just giving this as an example. Another item might have a higher cost, but also a higher benefit for the average fill rate for group classes. And also maybe it influences the percentage of new students taking group classes. And it actually has a higher benefit for the percentage of students who book a second lesson with the same teacher after one lesson. So these are impact estimation tables, and they're a very powerful tool. I think that's one of the most powerful tools, apart from getting better at quantifying stakeholder values for your products. This is something that you can learn from this book from Tom Gilp, and particularly from Kai Gilp. I think that's more accessible. So this is such a powerful technique that I want you to exercise with this as well. I don't have, well, we do have colored pens, but I'm not sure we have enough. We have blue and red, and we have 4 tables. Yes, we have enough. Perfect. So here are 8 backlog items to make it a bit more convenient. At your table, use blue for good and red for bad, and then like estimate what the impact would be on these different key results. You are. Go. And once you've done the impact, you can also determine the ranking. So you can sort of sum up the benefits versus the drawbacks, divided by the cost, and then you know what the ranking should be. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe if you've done a few, you can do the division to see which one has the most value. Little time left. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, great.
Minus 1920.
See, a little math.
Value minus 5 divided by minus 1. Oh, I see. 1 plus 8. Yeah, 1 year. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this one is done number 1. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think we need to start wrapping up. So I see some similarities between the different value decision tables, where the number 1 ranked item is either number 3 or number 2 on this list. And of course, these are also estimates. So it's very important to actually see when you implement this, whether it has the effect that you expect it to have, right? And if it doesn't, then it also tells you about your ability to estimate the impact. Right? You need to get better at that as well. Right now, you've done it for backlog items, for user stories. Typically, that's not the level of detail that you start doing this with, because it takes some effort. So in terms of applying this in a Scrum setting, this is something you do for bigger backlog items that we sometimes call epics or features. So for bigger chunks of work, because this is very detailed, and you notice it takes a while to get through it, right? It's a bit of work. So sometimes it's not really worth putting all that effort into making this perfect ranking of it. But for like bigger backlog items, it does make sense. What is the most impact on the key results that we want to accomplish in this quarter? And maybe actually we reverse it and talk to the team that is actually implementing this and say, these are the key results that we try to accomplish. What backlog items should go with that have the most impact on us? And maybe they have the ideas as well, right? The idea is that we don't tell them what to do, but tell them what problem we need to solve. And the problem is that we have to have this key result go from this point to that point. How can you help with that? Okay. So a few things I want to leave you with. OKRs look different in every organization. I've helped implement them in a few, like half a dozen organizations, and every time I see them, they are different. Because sometimes, oh, that is a bit fast. Sometimes the objective is the same for the whole organization, but different teams for different departments have different key results. And sometimes the key results are really a scale, and the number changes each quarter. We want to go from this number to that number, and then we've accomplished it, and then the new key results become, well, that is the old number, we want to move that number to another number. And that's also possible. Or we have a roadmap with plans for the whole year, and we already decided on the key results we're going to use in the different parts of the year. Of course, having a roadmap that far ahead also has a certain risk to it, that we're focusing on key results while we're not actually accomplishing the key results right now. It's also possible that only one team uses OKRs. It's not necessary for the whole organization to use these. Typically, there are higher level goals in the organization that need to be attained anyway. Any organization that I consult with, I ask them, so what is the goal for this year? When they get to a certain level of management, they have the answer. Very often when I talk to people in teams, they have no idea. They usually say, well, we need to have more profit or more revenue. But there are usually other objectives as well. And I've consulted with a few companies that just have the same OKRs for the whole year. It sort of depends on your appetite for change as well. Some organizations don't change as fast, so their OKRs are more stable for the whole year. And my point here, there is no good or bad. Typically, it helps to have faster feedback, but faster feedback requires a lot of other things to also exist. So if you don't have faster feedback, then probably a cycle for a year is fine as well. And as Scrum and Agile practitioners, it is our job to see how can we improve that situation? How can we get faster feedback? How can we help this organization? All right, that's it. I want to thank you very much. If you want to connect with me with LinkedIn, here's my QR code. We're out of time, so you can stick around if you want to talk. I'm going to be around the rest of the afternoon. But I enjoyed giving this session to you, and I saw you enjoyed doing it as well. So I hope you learned something new and something that you can apply, and maybe I inspired you a little bit to look into the work of Kai and Tom Gilp and become better at defining value in your organization. So thank you very much. I got to guys on my stuff.